Welcome to Phoenixes Rising from the Ashes into Purpose. I am Tennille, your transitional coach, here to guide you through your journey back to higher self, the being the Most High created you to be by revealing the mental weeds that have kept you repeating toxic patterns. Once removed, I give you the tools to heal those wounds and grow back in its place God's truth about you. The goal is to get you walking in your purpose and power. I have available now an introductory course titled, So You've Fallen, Who Said You Can't Get Up? For only $97. To get started, just click on the link in the description box to enroll. Also, check out the Cluster B playlist where I describe the tactics Cluster B disordered creatures use to break down their targets so that they're pliable. I love feedback, so never be afraid to leave a comment on this playlist or my Blue Phoenix Rising documentary series. Season 1 of BPR is detailing how I became homeless. Season 2 will be up sometime this year, 2021, so please have patience. Again, leave a comment and let me know if you can relate to these topics. Subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Let's begin. So, we are going to talk about soul ties, and I want to place a trigger warning on this episode. We are going to talk about the Cluster B attaching soul ties in a relationship and after the discard, and family and society soul ties. Now, I have a different take on this than others, and just to let you guys know, I am going to be using my notes because I got this in a brainstorm after meditation, and I've waited probably about a month to actually do this. So here we go. Cluster Bs attach a toxic cord to your etheric body. Part of their illness is chronic obsession. It doesn't matter if you break it off with them or they discard you. The toxic cord is still attached because you are their property and their trophy. It's very frustrating when people who aren't coming from a spiritual perspective claim somehow the survivor is still not willing to let go of the demonic Cluster B. It's even more frustrating when it's claimed the person is your soulmate, twin flame, or karmic. Now, I'm going to speak bluntly about this because these type of people really need to shut up. It shows a lack of understanding of what Cluster B personality disordered people are, what their characteristics are, and what their strategies are. And if these twits had any knowledge, they would tell you what I am about to tell you right now. Yet what I hear is a mind control program to keep you filling their pockets. Also, stop going to these tarot readers because these guys, what I found, end up being channels for Cluster B personality disordered people. Again, that's a soul tie. A soul tie is an energetic etheric cord that is attached to you. Cluster Bs attach a toxic cord to have the illusion of a soulmate experience, not the real damn thing. So when you leave, you will feel what they feel. You will get agitated like they are because they don't have you in the physical. They don't have that access anymore. You may even experience something akin to a sexual encounter or become aroused at a time when you normally wouldn't. Just speaking the truth. So I'm not that type of coach into BS or listening to it if I'm not doing research. And then, and only then, but with that comes a lot of scroll through. I'm talking from experience. My situation is still going on. This person uses demonic magic, locator spells, confusion spells, destroy all, graveyard spells, beauty spells, fatigue spells, love binding spells, body swapping spells, you name it. If you don't have someone taking you through, coming from both the physical and spiritual, I believe it's a disservice to you. The cluster B has to win at all cost. They are very much aware. They will eventually be put in jail if one of the flying monkeys snitches on them, or they're caught red-handed in a raging tantrum trying to force you to deal with their insanity. I remember the transition in the 80s to the 90s with abused women going from being pulverized like slabs of meat to verbally and psychologically abused. Their abusers upgraded because they got tired of going to jail. They got tired of having to take responsibility for their savage actions. Witchcraft is the manipulation of energy to achieve a more favorable outcome for oneself. Cluster Bs are abusers. That's all they can do. They can't be rehabilitated because they don't have empathy. If you don't have empathy, you don't feel shame about what you do. Everyone is supposed to just take it. That's what they want. Due to the fear of being restrained, i.e. jailed, they have devised means of control that are evasive and unable to detect with the naked eye. Their favorite tool is witchcraft. A soul tie is a toxic, paralyzing energy cord one person transfers to another, either something they did or did not want to take responsibility for, or to be able to siphon and drain energy from a person they still want to be in contact with. The cluster B personality disordered don't like being left. If they discard you, they are still stalking you in the physical and the spiritual. If somehow you evade this, the physical part, if you evade the physical stalking, they will attach a soul tie cord to you via witchcraft ritual. This gives them the ability to be with you psychically instead of physically. This is why clients will feel guilt or shame for still being in love with a cluster B, even though they traumatize them. They may be in love, but there is a period after separation that feeling of love for that person who abused you dissipates and clarity comes and you move on. If you haven't moved on, then it's likely not you romanticizing your ex. It's them idealizing you, replaying in their heads the so-called good times, still in their minds participating in a relationship with you. And I know that sounds off the wall. Again, I'm coming from experience of dealing with a stalker for over 7 years who has used witchcraft, who has attached a toxic soul tie to me to be able to see what I'm doing, hear what I'm doing, you know. If I get into a relationship or I start talking to somebody, this person will become angry, and I feel it. And those of you know about astral projecting and whatnot, you know the levels that some people who engage in this will go. If you're not helping somebody and you're astral projecting just to spy on them, just to see them naked, or to discourage them, like I've been beat up in the psychic realm, you know, and because of my gifts, I can see a bit of a silhouette of the person, you know. So take what resonates. But again, I am coming from personal experience. So That is for a relationship, having a relationship with a cluster B. So if you haven't moved on, again, they're the ones that are romanticizing, idealizing you and replaying everything back in their heads. They are still in a relationship with you. They have not stopped. So even though you've moved on and changed directions, they are still moving in the same direction that they had planned both of you together would go through. And that's in their mind. So soul ties in the family and society. Soul ties are etheric cords attached to us by family, friends, and random people we meet. If they sense that we are empathic and healers, they will throw their emotional sins onto us and walk away while we're crushed by the weight. I think for them, in some unconscious way, it's a way to discard evidence in the spiritual realms. They're hoping to get karma off of their tail and go after you instead. If you accept it by not dealing with it, you can become it. The process I offer, reveal, heal, show, or grow and show, is a simple breaking down of tough situations we've experienced. It's like layers of an onion. We never reach the finish line. We just level up until we get to the core, the boss stage, so to speak. After we defeat the big boss, we get to freedom. These demons exploit your unhealed wounds, child molestation, isolation, being awkward and never fitting in. The fact you're still growing and getting to know who you are and what your purpose is. They're pretending to be your answer and hero causes you to give them an audience when you would ignore or avoid them because you feel their intentions in a healthy, whole state, having done the work to heal those wounds already. This started in childhood for many of us. I had a physically abusive father and a stepmother who was physically abusive and verbally abusive. Her abuse was laced with slight racism. I had to disconnect an etheric cord that had me take the blame for my father raping my stepsister. I was told by my white stepmother it was my fault he went after her instead of me because he abhorred black women. I was 11 years old at a sewing store when my stepmother turned and looked down at me with a scowl and told me it was my fault my cluster B father raped her daughter. It should have been you, is what she ended with. This soul tie festered into early adulthood for me because I was reflecting on an interaction with my father that told me he was aware he transposed his sins to me and happy about it. I was determined then to release myself from it. The family had isolated me and looked at me like an alien because of my father. They invited him to events even though they hated him. I couldn't face him dead on. I was still scared. I was still that little girl he was beating like a grown man. I remembered the beatings, and in one case it produced bloody ears, purple bruises, and swollen eyes. So I wrote him a letter and trembled as I wrote down the address on the envelope, put a stamp on it, and dropped it in the mailbox. And I waited. I knew he wasn't going to respond, but because I am an empath, my spidey senses were on high alert. I was doing what no one had done, giving him back his sins. In the letter, I called him a rapist. I called him out on years of beating, starvation, and verbal abuse. I told him he used me as a trophy and was never there for me. I ended with, I'm not taking on your shit. You did these things, not me. I told him he knew this. I knew the letter would get to him within about a few days, and I opened my third eye to hear his response. What I got was a deafening shock, guilt. I wrestled with his energetic attempt to re-inject me, but I refused to be poked again. Peace. It absorbed back into him. I felt a weight lift from me. I was proud quietly. I was still keeping in contact with an auntie who told me his health was declining and he had poor hygiene. I smiled to myself. Confirmation. Cluster Bs stay young and vibrant by draining your light and transposing their sins to healers. The energetic weight is too heavy and we look broken down because we can't process until we get away from them and heal. That's why they are always on you, even after discard. They want to make sure you go through judgment instead of them, if you so choose to take it on. When you heal, it all transfers back and they become angry and obsessed with making you pay for them having to face their demons. You get free from Cluster B soul ties by facing what happened. You write it down and break it down. What really happened and not the version you were gaslit to believe. You own what's yours. You give back what's theirs. You cry and curse. You take what you've written and send it, especially if it's not safe physically and emotionally to face the person. You swallow your pride because going into the demon's den, you may not come back out. It defeats the purpose. If you can't send it, set it on fire and forgive yourself for holding on to it for so long. Forgive them because they truly know not what they do. Get someone to talk to who is a support for you or who can be a support for you. Now, I know that this was quite intense, but it was really put on my heart to do this. And it's the 6th of January, and I believe I wrote this last month, middle of last month. And it was just so intense. And sometimes when I get downloads like this, I'm on a writing spree for about 3 days, and then I have to take a break and move on to other projects. So again, thank you for listening. And I pray that this helps somebody. Let me know your thoughts. If you can relate to anything that I have shared, if you have any questions, and like, subscribe, and share with someone you know needs to know they're not alone. There are links down in the description to enroll for my introductory course, So You've Fallen, Who Said You Can't Get Up? I also am offering free weekly coaching sessions, 45 minutes a piece, 1 a week for a month. So I don't want to leave you hanging. Now, the process, as I've said, many times on Instagram and these podcasts, is that, I went through this by myself with me and God. So I don't want to leave anyone hanging, and I'm not going to. So I would take up the opportunity right now. Let's see. There's also a Facebook group that you can join, trying to build up those numbers. And in that group, what you will receive is, of course, support, but also we're going to do some movie stuff. We're going to screen some movies, and just to show like how American Hollywood in the industry has glorified people with cluster B personality disorders. And so anyway, it is a very structured environment. We're all supportive. There is no comparing, no drama, just support, and through with others starting over and finding themselves again. So remember, your blessings are in your ashes. Rise, Phoenix.